All right, what's going on here? All right, welcome to the big show. I am Paul Zeise. We had some technical difficulties there at the beginning, but we're okay now. The big show brought to you every day. We come here at 5 o'clock or right around 5 o'clock every single day to talk about the world of sports, to figure out what is actually going on in the world of Pittsburgh sports. And, of course, this is a very special weekend in Pittsburgh every single year because it is the Steelers' home opener. And regardless of what happens, in the offseason, regardless of what goes on in the offseason, I mean, at the end of the day, you have optimism for the Steelers every single year for the most part. But at the end of the day, it is always one of those things where once the games begin, you kind of wonder – where that optimism goes. If they win, win or lose, obviously has a big, big impact on it. But, at the end of the day, the opener is always something that people really, really get, hyped for. And so I would expect that you'll start to see a buzz in town probably tonight and going into tomorrow as people come into town for the game because the Steelers, obviously, the Steelers opener is a big event for a lot of people. I think one of the things that you look at, and basically, it's one of those situations where the Seahawks are 0-1. They're coming in here, and I think that there's a lot of feeling that it is basically going to be a situation of where you have a team that people expect the Steelers to beat. Seattle's 0-1. If you remember, the Russell Wilson years, for a few years there, they were a team that was in the Super Bowl, twice, had a chance to get there a couple of other times. And, now they've moved on. They got sort of mediocre. They sort of moved on from Pete Carroll. Last year they were 9-8. They hired Mike Macdonald, so it's completely different this year. They moved on from Pete Carroll. Mike Macdonald last year was the coach, and it's one of those things where last year they got to 10-7, but that's about who they've been. So it just is important now to remember that they're a team that is probably very similar to the Steelers. Now, we can talk a lot about their offense, and of course, I think that starts with Sam Darnold. I've made it pretty clear I'm not a Sam Darnold fan. I thought he was a guy that the Vikings were fortunate to win a bunch of games in the regular season, but when they needed him to be the guy when it counted, he just wasn't. Last week of the season and then in the playoffs, he was sort of that kind of inconsistent, not really great kind of guy who just made enough plays for them to win games, but when they needed him to be really good, he just wasn't. That was in Minnesota. Obviously, he comes to Seattle. They moved on from Geno Smith, who's in Las Vegas, and I kind of thought if you're going to choose between Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, not sure why you would go with Sam Darnold, but they did. They've got a couple of good big weapons, obviously, in Jackson Smith and Jigma. And Kenneth Walker is not obviously what he used to be, but he's had some really big games in the last few years, and he's probably capable at any point. The other interesting name they have on offense is Cooper Kupp. But I don't think that it is where the Steelers should be concerned. I mean, I would say that the offense of Seattle is probably not going to be that big of a threat. I think they'll actually have a decent day and maybe score 17, 20, 21 points, whatever. However, defensively, they're really good. They lost to the 49ers in week 1, And, they lost not because they couldn't stop San Francisco, but because they weren't able to score. But if you look at that defense, their defensive line is really good. Their front seven is really good. They like to bring a lot of pressure, and I think they will. They only got one sack last week, but if you look at what they did, they had 7 tackles for losses, which I think that's pretty impressive. They hit the quarterback last week 8 times. I can tell you, if they have 7 tackles for losses and 8 hits on Aaron Rodgers, it could be a long day for the Steelers. They get after it. They really do. They're going to bring pressure. They like to try and basically confuse opposing quarterbacks. They picked off Brock Purdy twice last week. Probably if you saw some of the game. And, the best part about having NFL Network is that, I think it's Tuesdays. You can watch every game in replay. And it's every game in replay without all of the breaks. So you can watch it in like an hour or whatever it is. So I got to watch a little bit of the Seahawks and the 49ers. And I think one of the things is they actually had their hands on 2 other balls that they could have picked off. And I think that's going to be something to watch as well. Aaron Rodgers generally doesn't throw interceptions. I mean, we've talked about it. In his last 11 games as a starter, he's thrown 4. That's it, as compared to 22 touchdown passes. But I don't know if this is going to be a week where, Aaron Rodgers really gets off like he's capable of. I'm concerned in some ways about the way that the Steelers are going to try and defend. They're going to try and attack the pass defense of the Seahawks, because that means you've got to block the guys up front. Now, maybe there was a come-to-Jesus moment that I didn't know about between Broderick Jones and Mike Tomlin or something on, this week. Maybe he'll be much different. Maybe he will do things, much different and play much better. Okay, maybe. Maybe not. And I think that if he doesn't, then I think one of the things about it is if he doesn't do that, then they're probably going to be, a tough day for Aaron Rodgers. I think he'll get hit a lot. I do. Mike McDonald comes from a defensive background. He's hired some really good assistants. I think the way they play and the way they get after it, it could cause the Steelers some headaches. I just think that it's one of those things where that's probably the matchup that I'll watch. Everybody, keys to the game. Well, I mean, keys to every game are the same, if you ask me. Don't turn it over, right? Number one, and first and foremost, the number one indicator if you're going to win or lose a game is turnover margin. So don't turn it over, right? Have some success on first and second down so you have manageable third downs, right? Don't give up big plays. I mean, you could say that about any game. In this game, you would add, don't let the Seahawks defense get loose. Don't let them go after Aaron Rodgers. Don't let them, do the things that they like to do to try and confuse quarterbacks and to try and, make it difficult for offenses. They're a defense, too, similar to the Steelers over the course of time, where if you look at what they are and what they want to do and what they do, I mean, they are kind of one of those teams that they'll give up some yardage, but they want to make big, big plays. They want to make big, big plays. And I think that's the key to me. It's when they make big plays on defense, those can change the game. Big plays on defense can often change the game. Obviously, blitz that's successful, tackle for loss on a third down that's successful, turnover forced. Those are the kind of things that influence a game. And I think one of the things about Mike McDonald, he's very familiar with the Steelers. Obviously he hired a defensive coordinator whose name escapes me, guy from Dallas, But just like the situation here with the defensive coach here, let's not kid ourselves that Mike Macdonald doesn't have his fingers all over that defense. And remember, he's very familiar with the Steelers. He came up in the NFL as a Ravens intern. Then I think he was a defensive backs coach. Then he was a defensive assistant. Then he went somewhere else for a year or two. Then he was the Ravens defensive coordinator before he became the Seahawks head coach. So we'll see what happens here. And I think that's, going to be very important really to watch. What exactly is it going to be that they bring to the table? How are they going to attack the Steelers? How are they going to, attack the Steelers' offense? Now, if you look at their injury report, there's a couple of interesting things. Nick Emerson, he's out, probably. Well, they actually listed him as out. Devon Witherspoon, a corner, he's listed as doubtful. They've got a couple of other defensive players that are on the injury report as limited. So injuries will play a little bit into it as well. But again, I think when you're playing a guy like Mike Macdonald, when you're playing a guy that knows you very well, that can be a real factor. Now, for the Steelers, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting from the standpoint of the Joey Porter Jr. is out. Deshaun Elliott's out. Derek Harmon is obviously still out. It's just one of those things that I feel like the Steelers secondary is a little bit depleted as well. And that's where I would tell you they've got to try and, now we're going to see if all that depth they acquired in the offseason is good. And all that depth they acquired in the offseason back there is good. And if they're going to be able to continue to have success, because I thought the secondary played very, very well. I do. So that's going to be interesting. Again, I think obviously keys to the game. I'm not sure what the keys to the game are beyond what I said, but there's a couple of things that I think you need to watch. Sam Darnold is the ultimate guy who I think some days looks like he's a world beater. Other days looks like he might be a guy who is just sort of a really good backup quarterback. If the Steelers get the backup version of him, I think that they're going to be in pretty good shape. But if they get that version where every so often, because he does have some arm talent and everything else, then to me, okay, then it could be a real interesting game. But I believe if the Steelers are able to do what they do and not turn the ball over, I don't know that Sam Darnold is good enough to beat them. I just don't. I think he's a guy who, if he has to be one-dimensional, if their offense is one-dimensional and you're putting it on him, I don't think that he's good enough. That's just me. By the way, the Game Time app, download the Game Time app. It is Game Time, GAMETIME, Game Time, one word. Download the Game Time app for all of your ticket needs to events that range from sporting events to every other event you can think of that requires tickets. One of the things about the Game Time app that makes it unique is that it really specializes also in last-minute tickets, which is always a good thing. It guarantees you the best price. And I think I say it all the time, but the one thing that I think is really important, your fees are included with the price. I hate going on an app, looking for tickets. The app says the tickets are $75. You check out, and all of a sudden you realize the tickets are $100. I hate that. They don't do that at Game Time. The price you see is the price you'll pay. And that's a big advantage, I think, for them, because it really eliminates a little bit of the guesswork as to how much are the fees going to be here. The other couple little things that I like, number one, you can favorite your team, for instance, and or favorite events you like to go to. And once tickets become available for those things, you'll be the first to know and have the first opportunity to buy some stuff, buy some if you need them. Also, you can pick a section of the stadium or a concert venue or whatever else, just pick a section. And if you say, listen, I just want this section or this zone, they'll pick out the seats for you, and it saves you a little bit of money. And the other thing, of course, is if you find the tickets similar or the same tickets somewhere else cheaper, they will actually pay you 110% of whatever the difference is. So it's user-friendly, number one. Number two, it's the best value you can find for tickets. And number three, it's the peace of mind to know the price that you're paying or the price that you're looking at is the price that you're going to be paying. And so I think that's where it is the advantage. So what do you have to do? Well, first thing you have to do, you have to download the app. Second thing you have to do is once you download the app, use the promo code PG Sports, and you will get $10 off your first purchase. Moving on from the Steelers a little bit. The Penguins made an interesting decision today, and I think it's an incredibly good decision. And I think it's one that probably, given all of the bad will that Fenway Sports Group has built by the way it's treated Mario Lemieux and some other things, it's probably one of the best things they could do from the standpoint of trying to build some goodwill. I think so. I just feel like when you look at it from that standpoint, it's really, really, really a goodwill move, a goodwill gesture, but it is something that I think the Penguins needed to do. What am I talking about? Well, they signed Marc-Andre Fleury today. Not for the season, but so that he can retire a Penguin. Now, in general, what they do with these things is guy signs, 10 minutes later, he officially retires, it's over. But the Penguins wanted to see him in a uniform one more time. So what they're going to do now is he's going to play in one exhibition game. I often wonder, where would the Penguins be if they had stuck with Fleury instead of Murray after, their second Stanley Cup? A, they could have traded Murray for a lot more than they got for Fleury because he was, 10, 11 years younger. B, Fleury was a really good goalie, even up into this last year. So, to me, I think it would have been interesting because they wouldn't have gone through all of the wilderness that they have to, they have had to when Murray sort of flamed out. They've bounced around from different goalies. They've gotten guys that aren't good enough. We've talked about this a bunch. Almost like the Steelers with quarterbacks. The other thing about Fleury is he's one of the most popular players in franchise history. If you think about it, name guys that are more popular than Marc-Andre Fleury is among Penguins fans. I mean, the guy got a standing ovation every single time he came. I know a lot of Penguins fans that rooted for Minnesota and Vegas and whatever other team he was on simply because he was on that team. He's shown the ability to, be a guy who is also very much at a place where he's got goodwill. I think that's important. I do. Like, he's been a goodwill ambassador in so many ways for the Penguins and for this town. And that's why he's so popular. And I think that is where I'm at with it, with why I think it was so important for them to bring him back. sign him, you know what I mean? And sign him and bring him back, even if it was just for one of those 1 day things where he was signing and they were able to get him to come back and make an appearance, or whatever. It's one of those things where you say that would have been enough, but they didn't. They didn't. They took it one step further. My guess is that exhibition game is going to be one of the most it's going to be one of the most attended games because Marc-Andre Fleury is there. Marc-Andre Fleury is so popular, here. I'm going to be interested to see what tickets go for that exhibition game that he's going to play. I think fans are going to love it. It sounds like it's going to be something that they're going to build more than just, him playing the game around. And that's where it is going to, go. So I feel like it's a good place for the Penguins to show a little bit of goodwill. An easy place. Now, there's some cynical people out there who would say Marc-Andre Fleury is actually the best goalie on the roster right now. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe. You know how we feel about Tristan Jarry, and, there's about 3 other guys that are going to fight for the backup spot. But I just don't know that Marc-Andre Fleury has enough in the tank anymore to be better for 82 games. So it's going to be very, very interesting. September 27th, Marc-Andre Fleury back in Pittsburgh. And I think that is going to be a lot of fun for people. I'll be interested to see what the ticket prices are for that thing and what the attendance is like, because at the end of the day, it's an exhibition game. Are you having trouble finding the right people to hire, tired of sorting through endless resumes? Well, the future of hiring looks much brighter because ZipRecruiter's latest tools and features help speed up finding the right people for your roles. So you save valuable time. Now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect with qualified candidates in minutes. See a candidate you're really interested in, you can unlock their contact info instantly. Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you can try it for free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Tomorrow, we've got the Backyard Brawl. West Virginia, Pitt. It's one of those games that people, throw that stupid cliche, which I've never agreed with. Just throw the records out when these two teams play. First of all, I don't think I think that's usually silly. A lot of times you throw the record books out because two teams are pretty evenly matched. Most of the time in these kind of rivalry games, especially this series, the better team wins. There's not a lot of examples, I would say, of throwing the records out. Obviously, the one that stands out was Pitt, West Virginia, 2007. All West Virginia has to do is beat a 4-7 Pitt team down there, and they go to the national championship game. And I'll tell you, they'll probably win the national championship because they had to run circles around Ohio State. If you remember that Ohio State team, I think it was LSU that beat them. But that Ohio State team with Troy, I think Troy Smith might have been their quarterback that year. It looked like they spent the month of December eating, drinking, and getting fat and slow. And it showed on game day. And I think West Virginia, obviously, the way they played with the speed and everything else they played with, they probably would have pounded Ohio State and won the national championship. But they didn't. And so that's one example, 13-9. Dave Wanstead on the crutches, Scott McKillop making big plays, LaShawn McCoy essentially putting the team up on his back and carrying them. It was one of those great nights if you're a Pitt fan. Connor Lee making a couple of field goals. it was a big night. And that was a game where I'll throw the record books out. But I'll be honest with you, I don't know that it was necessarily just throw the record books out. I don't think that was really the number one dynamic that was in play. Pitt was motivated to win because obviously Pitt was trying to beat West Virginia. They would have been motivated to beat anybody, but they were trying to beat West Virginia. But that's not the thing that really was driving that night. That night, West Virginia, and are you ready for this? Choked. One of the most egregious examples I've ever seen of a team completely choking. And it started with Rich Rodriguez, who, for 3 years in a row or whatever it was, ran circles around Pitt's defense. And then in that game got really ultra-conservative and called a game like he was scared. Pat McAfee was one of the best kickers in the country. And guess what? Early in the game, when he had a chance to give his team a lead, not once but twice, he blew 2 chip shot field goals. Pat White went out of the game for a little bit with some kind of injury and just looked like a kid that didn't want to play. Pitt beat them that night. But I'll be honest with you, if they had played 2 days later or, a week later, without all the fanfare, I think West Virginia would have beat them by 30. So that was an example of a game in this brawl where, the better team probably did not win. But I don't know it was throw the record books out. I think it might have been more than just West Virginia choked on it. Absolutely choked on it. So to me, when you think about it like that, and I bring that full circle to now, I watched West Virginia play against Ohio U last week. They're not good. They're bad. They don't have nearly as much speed as they usually do, or Rich Rodriguez's teams are built on speed. They're slow. Their quarterback situation is a mess. Their best running back got hurt. Their offensive line isn't great. This is a game where Pitt is better and should win. Pitt has an established quarterback. They have, one of the best running backs in the country. They've got a really veteran offensive line. They've got a ton of depth on defense. Pat Narduzzi has a 10-year head start in recruiting on Rich Rodriguez. It's one of those things where there's no excuses for Pitt not to win this game. Pitt should not only win, they should win going away. Now, whether they will or not, different story. But they should. And again, I know the cliche will be if they lose, I throw the record books out. If they lose, it's not because of that. If they lose, it's because they play a poor game, a bad game. If they play well, they're going to win. A year or two, Rich Rodriguez gets a couple of classes under his belt. Okay. Then we'll have a much, much different story, and it'll be a much better game. But I expect Pitt to win. I know I've seen a lot of national guys say, throw the record book out and all that crap. Take West Virginia in the 7. I think Pitt wins going away. I do. So, and if they don't, it's not good. By the way, the game is always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's and enjoy a great time and a great meal. And, of course, if you go to Archie's, tell them I sent you. Tell them I said hello. And make sure you say hi to Archie, who's one of the best people you'll ever meet. That's about it. We will be talking about all of this stuff on Monday or Tuesday whenever I come back. Also, remember, I will be on right after the Steeler game, so tune in. We'll do a little post game and wrap it up, me and Adam Bittner, right after the Steeler game on Sunday. Until then, have a good weekend.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.